I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we please stand for a pledge to the flag?
Okay.
Madam President, you have something to read first?
Yes. Remembering the 500,000 Americans lost to COVID by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. As of this week, during the dark winter of the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 500,000 Americans have now died from the virus. This is more Americans who have died in a single year of this pandemic than in World War I, World War II, Vietnam War combined. On this solemn occasion, we reflect on their loss and on their loved ones left behind. We as a nation must remember them so we can begin to heal, to unite, and find purpose as one nation to defeat this pandemic. In their memory, the First Lady and I will be joined by the Vice President and the Second Gentleman for a moment of silence at the White House this evening. I ask all Americans to join us as we remember the more than 500,000 of our fellow Americans lost to COVID-19, and to observe a moment of silence at sunset. I also hereby order, by authority vested in me by the Constitution and law of the United States, that the flag of the United States shall be flown at half-staff at the White House and on all public buildings and grounds, at all military posts, naval stations, and on all naval vessels of the federal government in the District of Columbia and throughout the United States and its territories and possessions until sunset, February 26, 2021. I also direct the flag shall be flown at half-staff at the same period at all United States embassies, lectations, consular offices, and other facilities abroad, including all military facilities and naval vessels and stations. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 22nd day of February in the year of our Lord 2021, and the independence of the United States of America, the 245th. President Joseph R. Biden. Moment of silence, please.
Pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, this is a public meeting of the Bayonne Board of Education. It is 6:04 p.m., the 23rd day of February, and we're convening in the Alexander O'Connor Auditorium. The presiding officer is Maria Vallado, President of the Bayonne Board of Education. Those in attendance include Mr. John J. Neese, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Kenneth Kopaz, Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, Dr. Gary Maida, Board Secretary, Mr. Daniel Castles, our School Business Administrator, Mr. Thomas Pagoo, Jr., our Assistant School Business Administrator, Dr. Dennis Degnan, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and joining us tonight is Mr. Tom Coben, who's our Board Counsel. The meeting's open to the public. I will take a roll call. Trustee Burke.
Here.
Trustee Cassius.
Here.
Trustee Egan.
Here.
Trustee Finnerty is not. Trustee Slafane. Here. Trustee Watson.
Here.
Trustee Wilbeck.
Here.
Vice President Munoz.
Here.
And President Vallado.
Here. For the record, adequate written notice of at least 48 hours giving the time, date, and location of this meeting with the agenda was provided as follows. The notice was promptly posted in City Hall at 630 Avenue C on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements of the Board of Education. The Board Secretary sent such notice to the Jersey Journal and Bayonne Community News. Notice was filed with the municipal clerk of the City of Bayonne, Ms. Medina. Thank you.
Madam President, I'll turn it over to you for a second.
I'd like to have a moment of silence, please, for our principal, Stacy Janeco's mother, who passed away, principal of Room School, and for Todd Hill, a custodian a custodian at Henry Harris, who passed away suddenly this past week. Please, let's have a moment of silence for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first order of business is our approval of the minutes and acceptance of communications. Everything is listed on our bulletin board. Do I have a motion? And do I have a second?
Yes.
So I have a motion by trustee Sclafane and a second by trustee Watson. On the move and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane, trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
president Villado.
Yes.
Next up is our curriculum and instruction, resolutions A1 through A9. They were all covered at their committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A motion by trustee Wilbeck and a second.
I'll second.
And there's a second by trustee Sclafane. On that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
president Villado.
Yes.
Next up is our our finance, building and grounds, resolutions B1 to B16, also covered at committee meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by trustee Watson and a second.
I'll second it.
And there's a second by trustee Egan. On motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
president Villado.
Yes.
Then on our personnel resolutions, resolutions C1 to C13, also covered at committee meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by trustee Burke and a second.
I'll make it.
Second by trustee Cassius. So on that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
president Villado.
Yes.
Then I have a non-consent portion. I'll start with resolution D1. Whereas it's been resolved that the attached memorandum of agreement between the Board of Education of the City of Bayonne and the Bayonne Public School Administrators Association covering the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2025, be and same are hereby approved. Be it further resolved that the board president and secretary are hereby authorized to execute the said agreement in the name on behalf of the board. Be it further resolved that the school business administrator of the Board of Education is authorized to take the necessary action to implement the terms of this agreement. This resolution is effective immediately. Do I have a motion?
I move it.
Motion by trustee Egan and a second.
I'll make that second.
Second by trustee Cassius. On that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
and president Villado.
Yes.
Moving on, resolution D2 is the appointment of an assistant superintendent of special services. Whereas this Board of Education finds it necessary to appoint an assistant superintendent of special services to meet the current operating needs of the school district, be it resolved that as recommended by the superintendent of schools, Mr. John J. Neese, that the below named personnel be appointed to the position of assistant superintendent of special services. Be it further resolved that this Board of Education approve the recommendation made by the superintendent of schools to appoint the personnel listed below on the effective date indicated, which is March 1st, 2021. It's our Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, Jennifer Petrogara. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by trustee Burke. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by trustee Cassius. On that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Safane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
vice president Munoz,
Yes.
president Villado.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Madam President, would you like to introduce
I'd
our?
I'd like to introduce Jen to stand up, say hello, our new superintendent. Give a round of applause. We're very happy to have you. Can't wait. Can't wait for you to start working with us. Thank you so much. Next.
And our final resolution, Resolution D3, is an approval of a settlement, is a resolution authorizing and approving a settlement agreement and a general lease between the Board of Education, whereas the Board of Education is party to a complaint filed by Superior Court of New Jersey, Hudson County Law Division, docket HUDL 3713-19, whereas a copy of the proposed settlement agreement and its release is on file in the Board Secretary's office. A copy has been provided to the Board trustees. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board that the aforesaid recitals are incorporated herein, and through fully set forth at length, the settlement agreement and release dated January 13th, 2021 is authorized and approved. The Board President, Superintendent, Business Administrator, Board Secretary, and Board Counsel be and they are hereby authorized to execute any and all documents and to take any and all actions necessary to complete and realize the intent and purpose of this resolution, including the execution of the settlement agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll make that motion.
So I have a motion by the President and a second by the Vice President. On that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is absent, trustee Sclafane,
Yes.
trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Recuse.
trustee Wilbeck recuses, Vice President Munoz,
Yes.
and President Villado.
Yes. We're done with ours, right?
I am done with the
Superintendent,
business.
stand.
I do have cards, but I'll go in whatever order you want me.
At this moment, I'd like to have the superintendent stand and please give a report to us on the reopening, where we are, what's going on.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. We will reevaluate our plan in March. Currently, I'd like to read a statement from an article and from some research in reference to the obvious question of when will we return to school. As we said, the President announced, and I'll use the same data, but roughly one year since the first known death from coronavirus in the United States, the unfathomable toll is nearing the loss of 500,000 people. No other country has counted so many deaths in the pandemic. More Americans have perished from COVID-19 than on the battlefields of World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. At the White House briefing on March 31st, 2020, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top infectious disease expert in the country, and Dr. Deborah Birx, who was coordinating the coronavirus response at the time, announced then a stunning projection. Even with strict stay-at-home orders, the virus might kill as many as 240,000 Americans. As sobering a number that is, we should be prepared for it. Dr. Fauci said that on March 31st, 2020. Less than a year later, the virus has killed more than twice that number. This will be a sad day in our history, according to Dr. Mukdad, an epidemiologist at the University of Washington. Our grandchildren and future generations will look back at us and blame us for the biggest failure in facing the pandemic in the country that's the richest country in the world, that we allowed people to die and that we didn't protect our most vulnerable populations, and that we did not protect our essential workers. The Institute for Health and Metrics Evaluation, an independent global health research center in the University of Washington, has projected the nation could reach more than 614,000 deaths by June 1st, 2021. Factors, how well people adhere to guidelines like mask wearing, social distancing, plus the speed of vaccinations could affect that estimate. Some obvious questions that I'm sure that many people have, and I appreciate that. Currently, we have 2 schools that are currently closed because of workers who have contracted COVID-19. Our athletics programs at the high school have not had 1 week without a COVID-19 infection. Every division in the district, all offices have had outbreaks and closures due to COVID-19. What are we doing to open? We have impaneled our COVID-19 response team. We're working on how to come back. The vaccine is at the forefront of that discussion. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Castles in a few minutes just so he can comment on what we have done as a district and what we are planning to do as a district. No one, I think we all, I shouldn't say no one, but I think all of us feel the exact same way, that we're a school and we need students in our buildings. That's where we need to be. But a couple questions. The 5 main arguments for school closures are the following, in my opinion. School closures are necessary to prevent the spread of the virus. Evidence from past pandemics supports the efficiency of school closures, and reopening schools, we're going to continue to have outbreaks. So one of the things we're going to talk about is school closures and how that's necessary to slow the stop of COVID-19. While school closures as a measure on its own is predicted to have limited effectiveness in controlling COVID-19 transmission, when combined with intense social distancing, it plays an important role in severing remaining contacts between households and thus ensuring transmission declines. School closures may only have a small effect on stopping coronavirus, study says. Another one, school closures are necessary to protect adults and children. According to Nicholas Christus, a social scientist and physician at Yale University, proactive school closures, closing schools before there's a case, have been shown to be one of the most powerful non-pharmaceutical interventions that we can deploy. Next claim, school districts are not prepared to safely reopen. That is what our constant challenge is. Restarting schools with online instruction is the safest solution. We know this is a safe solution. However, we want what all of our community wants, is to open our schools to our students. Evidence from past pandemics, according to Indiana University School of Medicine in the New York Times, Aaron E. Carroll, it's not just children that we worry about. Plenty of adults work in schools, teachers, janitors, food preparation workers, and more. As I said, every division in our district has had an outbreak of COVID-19, and I'm sure you've seen some of our messages in reference to our food service being shut down. They are all at risk, but keeping our schools open is arguably the most important than the risk. Arguably, they're more at risk than many other workers at business that they have already been shut down. Closing schools can make a big difference in flattening the curve, as evidence from past pandemics shows. And a study in Nature in 2006 that modeled the influenza outbreak found that closing schools during the peak of the pandemic could reduce the peak attack rate at a speed of spread of 40%. By closing and by taking preventive measures, it does work. The most important thing, I think, that we would all agree is that we want to open up our schools. And I realize that I realize you understand that, but I also understand that you want our schools open, and likewise, we do as well. We are very optimistic in reference to a vaccine being offered to us. We're in a mode of, we're ready to go. We have a team that has prepared for it. If we're advised that we can have a vaccine available, we will immediately be able to offer that to our community, our community of teachers, employees, and all those that care for your students. But that is one of the most important things, I think, that we want. So with caution, we take every day going forward, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Castles just to let you know where we are. We talk about ventilation. We talk about some of the things, how we're preparing to open. Again, as we've said in some of the letters, our average age of our buildings is 87 years old. Most of our buildings do not have ventilation. This is an anomaly that in this room we have ventilation. Other rooms don't have heating, air conditioning, and ductwork. So we're making arrangements for that as well. But I'll turn that over to Mr. Castle. Sir.
Thank you, Superintendent. So I'll discuss some of the things we have done, some of the things we're doing, and some of the things we are planning on doing in the future. The district has actually just currently completed the installation of MERV 13 filters in all of our HVAC units. That's the highest grade filter you can have. It is known to block out 99% of viruses. Along with that, we installed UV lights in all of the ductwork that we have throughout the district. Those UV lights kill, again, 99.9% of viruses that they come in contact with. Along with that, we installed a preventative maintenance plan on all of our HVAC units to make sure that they are continuously running and operating at optimal efficiency. We purchased plexiglass for all desks district-wide. Some of the student desks, obviously, plexiglass isn't an optimal situation, so the plexiglass was placed on all teachers' desks, office desks, and obviously in common areas throughout the district. We were able to cut some cost with that plexiglass by having our workers, they actually built these, so these are Bayonne built. We also were able to stockpile on PPE. So we have masks, both adult and child-sized masks, in storage, in preparation for when students return. Along with that, we have hand sanitizer for hand sanitizing stations. We're using a limited amount now, but we have enough stockpiled for basically a year in our estimate. We also have gloves, both adult and child-sized gloves, if we need those for the future. We also purchased thermal imaging cameras. You may have seen them as you come in. That would check your temperature and kind of be a gateway for people entering the building. And finally, another major project that we did was the gym ventilation project at the high school to install fresh air intakes, which was not previously in existence, to make that have better airflow throughout the gym. There are some other projects, I won't go on and on, but I'll just kind of hit on some of the heavy hitters. We were able to replace 4 boilers at the community schools to upgrade the heating system. We repaved the high school. I don't know if you saw that. A lot of the potholes are now gone. And we did a partial roof replacement at Midtown because the roof was having some serious damage and caused some water leakage. Another one is we replaced the sewer line here at the high school. So with all that being said, there was a lot of funding available through CARES Act and through what's known as CRF, or the Corona Relief Fund. We were able to parlay some of those federal funds to upgrade some of our facilities, which are needed during every school year, but especially when we welcome our students back, they're going to have safe facilities. We're not all the way there, but I think we're getting very close. And some of the things we're looking at doing in the future are getting air purifiers for each one of the classrooms and each one of the commonways. Since some of our buildings are older and they don't have ductwork, a lot of the things we have done won't address every room throughout the district. We believe that these air purifiers, medical grade with HEPA filters, will be able to address some of those areas that may not have windows and may not have ductwork. So hopefully, I don't know if any of you have heard, we received news that we're getting CARES Act 2 or ESSER 2 funding, and that is to the tune of $9.7 million, substantially more than we have received in the past. Hopefully, once those funds are released to us, we can move quickly on these air purifiers, get them installed, and provide another layer of health and safety for not only our staff, but when we welcome our students back, and kind of take care of some of the issues we've been seeing with just the staff in the building. So that's all I have, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know if you're interested in being on our pandemic response team, Dr. Maida has your information, but if you are interested in being on the pandemic response team, we'd be more than welcome you to our team. Our team has, I think, grown to about 60 people at this time, but the most important thing is to have the input from our community, and that is important to us. So again, we're here. That's what we're here for. So I just want to let you know that if you are interested, just feel free to reach out to Dr. Maida either this evening or tomorrow to let him know, and we'll glad to put you on that for our next meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Secretary?
Okay. And on that note, if you didn't sign in at the open workshop, I have a sign-up sheet here. We'd like to have your attendance with a name and a phone number, just in case we do need to contact you for contact tracing. So I'll put this on the auditorium counter over here. Right now we're going to start questions. We're going to ask our student representative, Petra Gali. She's our Board of Ed rep, our student representative.
All right. Good evening, trustees, superintendent, assistant superintendent. This evening, I'll be providing you with mainly 2 updates of the projects that we've been working on. First, our Wellness Wednesday series that features Bayonne High School Student Center. We're currently releasing 3 parts. The first was published on February 3rd that focused on what the Student Center is, an introduction of the counselors working there, and just the gist of it. The second part was published on February 10th, and it featured Counselor Cangiano, who was discussing relaxation tips and tricks for our student body. The third was published on February 17th. It features Counselor Lamberti, who discusses insomnia, our most requested topic. We asked the student body as to whether or not they found the Wellness Wednesday series helpful, and if they'd like for it to continue. They responded very positively, with 86% wanting the series to continue. All the videos are published and can be accessed on our student government Instagram page at bhs.stuga. We are very glad that it was a great help for many students. Second, we have also been holding Friday trivia nights, with our first one dating back to January 29th, to help engage the student body and provide an activity or an event during those tough circumstances. We were very grateful to have received the $100 donation from Bayonne law firm O'Halloran and Vitale to be able to provide gift cards for our winners. We have found that when prizes are available, we do receive a higher amount of interest from the student body for our trivia nights events. So we understand that times have been tough during COVID-19, and we are trying our best to still be able to have enjoyable events overall. We certainly are fortunate to live in such a supportive community like Bayonne, where our small businesses and residents have pulled through together to get through this pandemic and have helped each other immensely. So if any businesses or residents are interested in donating small gift cards, you could contact our advisors, Ms. Barone, at C as in Charlie, A as in Alpha, B as in Boston, A as in Alpha, R as in Roger, O as in Ocean, N as in November, E as in Echo at BBOED.org, or Mrs. Adamsick at M as in Mike, A as in Alpha, D as in Delta, A as in Alpha, M as in Mike, C as in Charlie, I as in India, K as in Kilo at BBOED.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Petra, if you don't mind, you also did a card as a private citizen, so why not, since you're up there,
Yeah.
I will reset this, and you're welcome to address the board again.
Okay. So I'm not speaking as a board rep anymore. I'm speaking just as a student. And honestly, I did not think I would be saying this tonight, but I would feel guilty and cannot in good faith receive my diploma in June and walk away without having stood up for what I've witnessed throughout the 4 years here. I thought coming to the board and explaining the situation for the parents and students of the high school would be the right thing to do, given that this situation is very dangerous. It has caused me personally to get 3 death threats from students over the last summer, threats that were investigated by the Bayonne Police Department because I went to them and my parents went to them, and threats that the school did nothing about, despite how graphic and detailed they were. This is the same situation that's causing many students and teachers to feel extremely uncomfortable, and they're scared to say something because they fear the reactions, and they've contacted me personally. I asked for 2 months now for a 7-minute extension to the 3-minute limit here at the podium, but it's not being granted. Instead, private meetings were scheduled, preventing me from explaining the full extent of the situation in transparency to the parents and students who deserve transparency and communication from us. My emails detailing the situation and requesting 10 minutes were ignored, but other emails I sent were responded to. It's heartbreaking that a student can only be given 3 minutes to discuss a topic that affects so many. I know that 10 minutes is not a lot to ask for, and I'm saddened that this is the level of transparency we're allowing for our students and parents. it feels more suitable to bring those concerns to trustees and address it here, seeing as many parents, students, myself included, by the way, place all of our trust in our trustees, and you've done a great job. And that's why I requested the 10 minutes. But if it's not granted today, I believe that parents and students still have a right to know what this is about, because it's too dangerous and it put my safety at risk, and it can put others' safety at risk too. I've been taught since elementary school and since I was a little girl to see something, say something, and I'm trying to say something today in transparency, but if I'm not able to explain that for 10 minutes at the podium here today, I'd be honored to explain it to them elsewhere. I have the utmost respect for all of you and for this board, believe me. I just disagree with this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. I just want to clarify for the 10 minutes. We did make an appointment to sit with superintendent and myself and discuss what was happening. The 3-minute rule at public meetings, that is for everyone. All the people here have concerns for their children, just like you have concerns for yourself. And I did reach out, but then there was a snowstorm, and we asked to reschedule. So we just need to reschedule that appointment. I will make time, and superintendent, to sit with you and discuss the issue. We'll be happy to.
And I would love to sit down with you guys. That's why I'm here. I want the solutions, but I also think that a large part of this needs the parents to be aware of what's going on. So I think private and public can be helpful. Also, with the 3-minute agenda, I understand that everything has a 3-minute limit, but this topic is about a security issue, and it's not in the agenda. It has not been in the agenda, and it's important.
Yes, thank you so much. You explained to us that it's a security issue, and you want to bring it to the board. And yes, we're asking you to bring it to the board. We'll sit with you, and we'll discuss it with you. And we already established that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming up.
But our parents can't know about it. Thank you.
Next up is Dariella Bonilla, 82 West 50th Street.
Good evening, everyone. My question is to the superintendent. It seems to me like the intention is to finish the school year virtually, because we get these nice emails from you every month saying that you're evaluating the plan. So why not say that you're just going to finish virtually if it seems like you are not going to be able to open up the schools? And to the gentleman with the red shirt, he spoke about what is being done to make the classroom safer, getting PPE and doing the duct work and getting filters into the classrooms. Is that going to be completed by September so that our children can finally get back into the classrooms?
Can I go first?
All right, I'll answer the first one. We're not giving up, we're not giving up our desire or our hope that we will be back in school before the end of the school year. We're not stopping. Our mission is to get back to school sooner than later.
Is it realistic?
I believe so.
And then my last question is, where are our children? What is the Bayonne School District ranking compared to the rest of the state when it comes to virtual learning?
There's no data on that available from the Department of Education yet.
Are you going to be administering to our children the district assessment or the state standardized test to get a real measure for the effectiveness of virtual learning?
Dr. Deggs, curriculum instruction? Yes.
If you're discussing about the NJSLA right now, it is a go, but we have to wait for guidance from the NJDOE. Yes, we would have to administer that. It's a requirement, federal requirement.
Are you able to realistically measure the effectiveness of virtual learning with our children?
We also administered the Start Stronger assessment. I don't know if your child took advantage of that back in the fall to find out if there was any learning gaps. So we are looking at the data currently, yes.
And once our children finally return to schools, how are you going to fill in those gaps? That's my last question. Thank you.
Well, we would look for a robust summer school. That's part of our, working with the BA, I would recommend that we look at a robust summer school. We could look at Saturday school options. We could look at personnel options, but there are a lot of things that are on the table there we're looking to close the gaps, absolutely.
Okay, next up is Miss Susan Barons, 15 East 43rd Street.
Hi. You covered a couple of things that I already have on here, but I would like to say something. So, hello, my name is Susan Behrens. I'm a homeowner here in Bayonne. I have a parent. I'm a parent of a child in the 2nd grade, Horace Mann. Bayonne had a really hard time when we first got the coronavirus, partly because of the city, and we have such a dense state, the densest in the country. When we got the call back from the school back in March, we were shocked, but we were actually really grateful. The virus was spreading quickly, people were dying, we had no idea how it was spread. It was really scary. My family quarantined, we went out when only necessary, we waited 6 months for the school to keep being delayed, opening over and over. In August, the governor said that that if school districts didn't want to return to learning in person, they had to have a plan in place and start working towards the goal. That gave me hope that we were going to be at least starting hybrid learning at some point. It's now another 6 months later, so my child has not seen the inside of a classroom in 12 months. She was once a happy kid. She's gone to depressed, she has panic attacks during school. I'm here to say that I am in support of reopening the Bayonne schools immediately. I find that other schools are doing it. I speak to other people in New Jersey and New York whose kids are going either full-time or hybrid. If the Bayonne School District, I appreciate that you said all the things about, that you're working on, and that's really nice to hear that you guys are working on things. I guess one question I have is, I'm aware that teachers are not yet on the eligibility list for vaccinations. I think that's terrible. I hope that's going to be rectified as soon as possible. But there are older people and ones with pre-existing conditions that are on the list, and many teachers qualify there. Are you tracking the teachers that have so far been vaccinated so that you know which teachers are vaccinated? And, if you maybe have some teachers that are vaccinated be willing to go back?
We're not privy to that information on if they already got the vaccination, but I can tell you this. We were told in December that we were going to have the ability to vaccinate our teachers. We already we have a plan in place now to vaccinate our faculty. If we're given the vaccine, we wrote a letter. We've contacted our elected officials. We sent a letter with our pandemic response team down to the governor. We were under the impression in December that this would have taken place, and then things changed in reference to where we are in the pecking order of the vaccine. When we get to that point, we will. Our pandemic response team is going to meet again. We're going to resurvey our community. The last time we did, in the fall, we were a third, and a third. A third of the community was in favor of going back to school. A third was not, and a third had thought that a hybrid schedule was optimal. The problem is that our schools, right now, we have nobody in our schools. Some teachers are teaching from their classrooms, and we had to shut 2 schools down. For Horace Mann, I also know that we had some things that we were doing with the children and with the parents and fundraisers, and we had to stop that. It wasn't stopping the school but it was the personnel, the employees. So while specifically I can't say how many people have the vaccine, but yes, we do know that some of our employees have been able to get the vaccine. I would like to also let the community know that our nurses are supplying the vaccine to the community. If you go to Bayonne Medical, they're the ones giving you the shot, giving you the vaccine. It's the Board of Ed's nurses. So we're well versed in this and we're ready to go. We're at the finish line and we hope we can get there sooner than later.
So it's
Ms. Behrens, that's your time. Thank you, though, for your question. Next up is Ms. Lynn Pawlowski, 128 West 26th Street.
I was born and raised in Bayonne and have 2 sons in the school system. I'm going to quote a few resources and conclude with 6 questions that I would like answers to. February 22nd, Governor Murphy said the rate of transmission is 0.86. It has been below 1 for some time now, and we're seeing the decrease in new cases that we expect. February 19th, Bayonne OEM indicated we now have well under 300 residents that are currently positive for COVID-19. February 19th, Governor Murphy noted there are 811 school districts and over 3/4 have some form of in-person education. February 12th, the CDC updated their website. Here's some of their information. Based on the data, in-person learning has not been associated with substantial community transmission. It is critical for schools to open as safely and as soon as possible and remain open to achieve the benefits of in-person learning and key support services. Even when a school prepares for reopening, cases may still occur. Expecting and planning for one or more cases can help schools respond immediately to minimize spread and allow the school to remain open for in-person learning. Reasonable concerns have been raised about the risk of infections for teachers and staff. Evidence shows that staff-to-staff transmission is more common than from students to staff, staff to student, or student to student. School interventions should include measures to reduce transmission among staff members. Detection of cases in schools does not mean that transmission occurred in schools. The CDC notes 5 mitigation strategies: consistent and correct use of masks, physical distancing, hand washing and respiratory etiquette, cleaning and ventilation, contact tracing with isolation and quarantine. They recommended layering 2 or more strategies with emphasis on masks and physical distancing. Schools using multiple mitigation strategies have been able to safely open for in-person instruction and remain open. Testing and vaccines for teachers and staff provide additional layers of prevention. The CDC does not require either of these to open safely. The absence of in-person education may disadvantage children from low-resource communities. January 28th, Dr. Fauci said, "I would back the CDC recommendations because that is really based on data. We need to try and get the children back to school, and that's the goal of President Biden." We can all agree our buildings are overcrowded and old. However, the hybrid reopening plan combats overcrowded, and the CDC says social distancing and masks are the most important factors, not vaccines and ventilation. Now for my questions. I emailed Dr. Neese January 27th and February 19th. Is 3 weeks and 2 emails an acceptable turnaround time? I received a response today. In what ways is the board working with the city of Bayonne, and what measures are being tracked to determine the community level of transmission? How much funding has been received from the state and federal government to combat the impact of COVID-19? How have those funds been spent? What's the board's plan to prepare for new grants being offered, and what are the priorities if those funds are awarded? The CDC states schools should be prioritized for reopening and remaining open for in-person instruction over non-essential businesses and extracurricular activities. How's this happening? A lot of time and energy and money went into completing the reopening plan. What still needs to happen to allow our children in the building? What is the estimated time frame? We can't stay home forever. And lastly, you mentioned that we can't ask teachers if they've been vaccinated, yet you're holding on to this as a requirement to open schools. Is that realistic? Thank you.
Next up is Melissa Gotsky Rodriguez, 178 Avenue F.
Good evening, Bayonne Board of Education. So one, I just want to start off by saying thank you for sharing that information. I think it's definitely, it's one of the pain points as a community member that we feel like we just don't know what's going on, so thank you. And all I ask is that we continue to share that kind of information. So I have a 2-part question. I know we get some donations here and there from some grants and all this good stuff. Have we thought outside of the box, and here I go with my crazy ideas, partnering with our community, our developers, to see how they can start or potentially look into supporting or contributing, sorry, double mask, to getting some of the additional sources we need by the ventilation and all that? Have we thought about what that relationship could look like?
So a lot of the issues that Penn, like we completed the HVAC work, the MERV 13, the UV light. That's a lot of that is grant dependent, but also on vendor dependent. A lot of the vendors we're not the only school district going through the same thing. So a lot of that was backlogged. So we just completed that part of the project. As far as ventilation goes, the next step is the air purifiers, and that's dependent on the second round of CARES, which we all know was delayed at the federal level for a while. We finally see that March 15th, it looks like they're going to start to release those funds and we can move forward. The only issue that I see with that is the same issue that we saw the first go around. we're not the only school district. Like, for instance, I know Newark is doing the same thing, and Jersey City is probably doing the same thing. So we're not the only school district looking for the same kind of solutions with older buildings. So the partnerships are all there. Like, we're working with the city for the vaccination. We're pretty much ready to go as far as that goes with the partnerships. That's more on the level of we just need access to the vaccinations. But as far as the facilities and getting them ready, that's more of a funding level. If you remember back during budget season, way back when, our original budget that was explained here was reduced by $5 million after the fact. So some of our local funding level was reduced. Now, we did save some money in supplies and such things, and we were able to do that to fund some of these projects that I had spoken about. But a lot of these HVAC, especially in older buildings, are expensive and unique to certain vendors. So that's kind of the obstacles we have, and that's how we're going to approach them and overcome them.
Thank you. And then as far as the pandemic response team, I think it's wonderful that we're getting input from all community members, and please continue that. Two things on that. I think continuing to diversify who's on that team, especially both ends of the spectrum, as well as let's reopen, let's close, let's go hybrid. And I think, the last survey we did was 2,407 responses, maybe 10,000 kids in the district. I think there's definitely some opportunity there to close the gap and get real data. So I don't know what your thoughts are on mandating a survey. So you sign into Schoology saying, hey, in order to get to your Schoology, let's take this survey and see where people are really at. If you are planning on that survey, when can parents expect to see that so that you guys have the support you need to go hybrid, stay closed, or reopen? I'll let you guys think about it. If you can just get back to us on that survey. It's a good point, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great, and next up is Nicole and Demchek, 32 Point View Terrace.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I just want to introduce myself. My name's Nicole Adamchek. I moved to Bayonne about 15 years ago, and if you couldn't already tell by my accent, I'm from Staten Island and Brooklyn, so there you go. I moved here in 2005, got married at St. Henry's 2010, bought a house in Bayonne, had 2 kids who are now 5 and 8. I work at a PR company in New York as a senior manager of finance. My kids have attended Preschool Playhouse and Henry Harris. Sorry, I gotta take this. This September, my 5-year-old was supposed to start Henry Harris, but he has difficulty with online learning. So I enrolled him in a private school here in Bayonne. They went back full-time in person.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, but you really should keep the mask because other people are gonna use the microphone.
Got it. In December, after almost a year of online learning for my oldest, Nicholas, an opportunity for him to go into the same private school opened, and I took it. I always teach my kids, and I even reiterate to myself, to make a goal, you have to set a date and stick to it. In my opinion, I pay taxes here. I am invested in all community projects, Bayonne Rec, PAL, and some others. I was forced to now pay tuition in a private school because the Bayonne Board of Ed has been stringing parents and teachers along since March of last year. And listen, I'm not saying that COVID isn't real. We all know it's here. The vaccine is not going to magically make it disappear. It takes years of work to provide immunities and build tracing and testing. And are we willing to keep our kids out of school this long? What about the teachers and children who refuse the vaccine due to health or religious issues and reasons? Will they be punished because they couldn't get the vaccine? Will they be let go? Listen, we all have to learn how to live with this. We have to make accommodations for a safe return to school. This should have been in the workings for a year already. Lots of other districts have gone back safely using a hybrid model. And I feel like we have no communications here as to what's really going on. All kinds of stores like Costco, Walmart, everything's been open. My kids even attended a summer camp at Midtown School last summer with PAL, which doesn't make any sense, right? The schools aren't open, so explain that. They've been part of pretty much every recreation activity that's been going on in Bayonne since the pandemic began. So long story short, because I'm not gonna stay up here all day, I think you guys should open up the schools. You need to plan, inform, and stick to your target dates. You didn't try the hybrid approach, which was an option. And I want to know, again, how are you tracking which teachers get the vaccine if that's how you're going to open the schools? You want everybody to have the vaccine, but you're not allowed to track who has it. So what's the real plan? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Our final speaker is Mr. Gene Woods, our president of our BEA.
Good? Everybody hear me? Okay. So I'm going to begin with number one, thanking all of our teachers and our staff for doing what they did since we had to shut down the buildings, not schools, in March. Teachers turned on a dime and got things done that people were not accustomed to doing prior. Right? Spent a lot of time and effort doing all that, and then when the summertime came, they did a lot of professional development on their own, and the district provided a lot of stuff for us also. Superintendent Neese, working with all of us, including the pandemic response team, the goal has been to make sure when we return, everybody returns safe. And safe is the key word, right? Because there's a 2% death rate when it comes to COVID. So if we want to talk numbers, and I brought this up way back before, we talk numbers, you got a 2% death rate. 10,000 plus students in the district, you got 2,000 staff. You do the math, that's at least 240 people who could possibly die as a result of this. Kids across the state, across the country, you can see illnesses popping up now related to COVID. There have now been also studies going on in the summertime that relate to the athletes who have now had heart conditions as a result of contracting COVID. We have had several of our own teachers contract COVID. One of them was in the Horace Mann building. She's having some issues and complications right now. And there is a minimal number of people in that building. And that's, she has COVID. She's sick, she's ill. She comes in, she does her job going in the building. And that's with a very minimal amount of people in there, right? I understand, and we all understand, because when you look at the staff, most of our staff have children. Most of them are at home with their children while they're teaching at the same time. So we have to keep that in mind, all right? One of the things that, is obviously brought up is about what the CDC has talked about. The CDC also put out some information that the cases for the flu this year have been down from October 1st to January 30th. There have only been 155 people hospitalized due to the flu, and that's compared to the same time last year when they had 8,633. Why are those numbers down? Because when you look at it, schools have been closed, the buildings have been closed. It's mitigating transmissions. You can look, if you are a teacher, if you've been in the buildings, you're a parent, you have kids, September rolls around, your kids are sick. Coming back after winter break, kids get sick again, teachers are sick. You see those transmissions go up. And that's why it's important to continue to do the things like the board, like the superintendent, like our BA is doing right now, to try to clean up all the issues in our buildings. When we came in, we didn't create these problems. We can look right there at that wall. You can walk the 12 buildings, well, I shouldn't say 12 because we have two fairly new schools here, considering Midtown and Nicholas Oresco or Shemin School now. When you walk the buildings, and we have, and the superintendent, that's one of the things we talked about when he first came in about fixing up a lot of our buildings, we have mold issues, you have the ventilation issues, where again, most buildings don't have ventilation. You go into those buildings in the summertime, not even summer, we talk about spring, May, September, you're talking about 100 plus degrees sometimes in those classrooms. Combine that now with the threat of COVID. This is a major problem. Kids are at risk. That's one of the things that people, continue to say that kids necessarily aren't at risk. You can see the numbers are there. Kids are at risk. It's transmissible. But the thing that kind of, I guess, disturbs me on an adult level, on a teacher level, is that sometimes people are okay with the transmission to adults, to staff. Now, I got to ask this is more of a rhetorical question, but, you know, the mental health thing is definitely a huge problem, right? But when a staff member dies, a favorite teacher dies, a classmate gets so sick that they're hooked up on a ventilator, we're going to have huge issues there. And again, the district is doing what they can. Our staff is doing what they can. Right? We are doing everything possible. But rushing it is very, very dangerous. And again, this is why, you know, again, the superintendent has been doing everything that he possibly can do in order to make sure everybody is safe, to make sure our buildings are safe. That's the key. We want our children to be safe. Right? We want our children to eventually move along and graduate. Nobody wants to attend funerals because of this. And some of my friends across New Jersey, they have lost fellow colleagues because of COVID. And again, hybrid situations, some are virtual. The hybrid situation has failed in many places. Why? Because it opens up, it shuts down, it opens up, it shuts down. And that's what you're seeing with the sports teams, right? It's transmitting, it's going through. People are having to go out, come back, go out, come back. It's dangerous. And if we know we can do something to stop it, we will. I had mentioned something the other day, you know, we're talking amongst some of my friends. We prepare for active shooters. That's a visible threat. We know about that. We huddle our kids in the corners. We sit there with them and try to protect them the best that we can. Basically putting our own lives in danger to make sure that they're safe. I've been in those classrooms. I've been in those classrooms when those doors were jammed on and kicked because they're testing to make sure that we're safe. You know, go back to 1997 in this district. 2 people were stabbed in a high school. 1 was killed. One of those people who were stabbed was a friend of mine. The school went and did what it could to protect people here. Metal detectors, IDs. We have an illness right now that you can't see. And the only way to protect people is by doing the things that we are doing right now to protect everybody. That's key and that's important. Our teachers want to be back in the classrooms. We miss our kids. And we call them our kids because we treat them like our own children. Many of them we have taken care of throughout our careers. But we only want to do it when it's safe. And that's why, again, I thank everybody who's doing this for us to make sure we're coming back safe. We don't want to have moments of silence up here for teachers or kids. We've done it enough. I've been in the district for 14 years, and there hasn't been one single year where we haven't had to have a moment of silence for a student who passed away. Gustavo Faris, I don't know if some people remember him. He was one of my students. After graduation, he went swimming down Big Seaside, drowned. Moment of silence. I had another student of mine pass away a few years ago, Nick Leola. I'd have another moment of silence. I know we don't want to have it, and I know parents don't want to have it. I know our district doesn't want to have it. We want people to be safe. So I appreciate everything that's being done, and I'll say it like I've said it again, only when it's safe. Only when it's safe. Thank you.
Okay, at that time, that's our last card. Is there a motion to adjourn? The motion?
Sure, I'm asking.
All right, we'll let you just state your name and your address, and I'll let you fill out a card after the fact.
Jason Gass, 73 East 25th Street. You mentioned something earlier before about MERV 13. I don't know if many people understand what MERV 13 means, but it's not hospital grade. It doesn't take out viruses. MERV 13 goes to 1. HEPA filters are 17 and above on the MERV scale, hospital grade sanitation. So you can't put more than MERV 13 into an HVAC system because it decreases the pressure. So it wouldn't work as efficiently. The UV lights that you have are good because they kill the microbes and the germs that are in the air. But humidity is also an important factor for mitigating virus load in the air. Anywhere between 40 and 70% recommended by CDC with their studies on tuberculosis. This is there already for us to reference. They have data for us to go on about the tuberculosis studies that they did, and it's on the CDC website. So in conjunction with the HVAC systems, I do agree with you to get the plasma wave technology air filters in each classroom and also maintain humidity levels and possibly look into silver painted floors. Silver has properties where germs cannot grow on it. They've already proven this scientifically. There's so many things that you can do to mitigate this virus from spreading to our kids, to give us a fighting chance to get these kids back to school. Because kids are committing suicide at home. They need to be around their peers. Please let us know what money you've spent so far and what money you have in the bank. I don't care about the Second Care Act. I want to know what money's left over. And if I gotta go and buy these damn filters to open up these schools, I'm gonna go do it. And that's all I got.
Just don't forget to fill out a card for me. No, I guess you forgot. Okay, so we have a motion by Vice President to adjourn and a second by Trustee Egan. So I have a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn the meeting. Trustee Burke? Yes. Trustee Cassius?
Yes.
Trustee Egan? Yes. Trustee Finnerty is absent. Trustee Sclafane? Yes. Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
Yes.
President Velardo?
Yes.
It is 7:03. The meeting is over.